Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of Movie Cast. We're going to be talking about The Best Man, the final chapters. This particular discussion is going to be a review because, Peacock, they did give us the opportunity to see the show early. So I want to definitely give a thank you to Peacock right to start this off at the very top. But we're just going to talk about the show, give our spoiler-free thoughts. At some point, we will do a spoiler discussion for those of you that are interested in hearing more of our thoughts on how they handle some stuff in the show. But overall, that's what we're here to do today. So I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr. And today I'm joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How's it going, Dana?
Dana is doing much better than Patty Jenkins in her failed Wonder Woman 3 script. Justice
Yes.
for Patty.
Yes. Well, hopefully she will have some other opportunities that she pursues. We'll see what happens with DC. DC is a mess right now, so I don't know what's going on over there. But we'll get some answers in the future, I would assume. We'll see.
We'll know by next week. There's that big meeting, so yay.
Oh yeah, James Gunn. So in Gunn we trust. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We're gunning for you.
So just to give a quick description about The Best Man, for those of you who do not know, this TV show is based on a movie series created by Malcolm D. Lee. The original The Best Man came out, I believe it was back in 1993. I'm not looking at the actual times right now when it came out. All I know is that when this came out, this is like a movie that was a really big deal. I believe I was in college or... Oh, it was 99. Okay, yeah. So I was right about to start 23 years ago. Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, we definitely old. I know we definitely old. So I actually was about to start college because I started college in 2000. So this came out right at that tail point time. But yeah, the whole idea of that first movie was to introduce you to the characters. You have Harper Stewart, played by Taye Diggs, who he writes a book, and what his friends learn is that he has them all portrayed in the book, and he basically reveals a whole bunch of secrets and a whole bunch of things and that he thought about certain people, so on and so forth. Obviously, those characters have evolved, but it really causes a huge rift. Of course, when he does talk about his best friend Lance, who is a sports athlete, football star, and the fact that he messed around with his soon-to-be wife, Mia. Now, obviously, they didn't get married. That happened, obviously at the end of The Best Man 1, they got married, so on and so forth. But all of those secrets in the past were things that came to a head right before this wedding was about to happen. So, obviously, it has an excellent cast. Nia Long, as I already mentioned, Taye Diggs, Morris Chestnut, Terrence Howard. There's several other people that we'll get into as well. But essentially, this show basically continues the story that we got left off in The Best Man Holiday, which came out years later. Now, I will say right now, that movie was a holiday movie, but it was a very emotional holiday movie because it's the same movie that, the Mia character actually passed away. She had cancer. That was man, I know I was pretty sad about seeing that happen in that movie. But at the end of the movie, we had this whole thing about Quentin. He calls up, Lance and Stewart and lets them know that he's getting married. So, and he tells, Harper that he wants him to be the best man, but he said, make sure that you haven't messed with my soon-to-be wife. He has that whole joke and stuff. But pretty much, essentially, this show picks up right after what happened when he told them about the wedding. So we get a chance to get into that wedding, so on and so forth. So that's just to give you all like a quick little primer of what to expect. And again, if you're going into this show for the very first time, they actually give you a recap of the first two movies, much more condensed at the very beginning. So you're reminded, okay, this is what happened in the first movie. This is what happened in the second movie. So this is pretty much, now we're going to go right into the final chapter. So before I give my thoughts, Dana, what were your overall thoughts on this particular show?
First of all, it took so long that I was like, oh, I didn't even know we was actually getting one. I was like, this took me by surprise. I'm very happy. So, to me, it feels just like they walked off the set of Holiday and just was on the set of the final chapters. Everything flowed very effortlessly. I loved that, we have the continuation and continuing thread, but even with Mia's passing, Mia is a huge part of this story. She's, it deals a lot with grief. And so I really liked how they incorporated her. They didn't just like, oh, yeah, and then I married this new woman. How they could have really gone, but they really incorporated her spirit, and she's still part of the core of the group. So I really like that they did that. It's really refreshing, and also there are moments that are like a little bit over the top for me, but it just comes across as natural. What happened is with the plot for this one, after the success of the book that he wrote, they want to turn it into a movie. And so now, once again, he has to ask everyone for permission. Are you okay with dealing with this? And of course, we may or may not have some other things that's going on. But what I really thought was, this is 8 episodes. I thought that movie format, the first 2 episodes worked great. But I was really surprised from 3 to 8 because they expanded on the individual characters and their lives. They incorporated COVID and how that also affected them. So this felt something that was just very natural. These were just a core group of friends who were just experiencing life the same way that we do. And we get to see them expand and grow. It's different from saying, no, I'm different than that, man. I'm not the first guy that you met from high school. And you really see that growth. And if you do watch, I do suggest that you actually watch the 2 movies, because that condensed thing, it's not going to get down to the core. And, there's arguments and hookups and certain situations and relationships that happen. And so once you get into the final chapter, it really makes sense because they carry this thread throughout all of the movies into the series, where there are things that they mention that happen. There are no flashbacks. It's also one of the things that I love. There are flashbacks, but it makes sense. Sometimes it can be very heavy-handed, but we don't see that here. Also, I'm really appreciative there's no narration, because that easily could have happened. There's no narration. This felt like it was a very well-polished script, and it took a while. Remember, the second movie came out in 2013. So from 2013 to now, it really felt like we didn't just write this yesterday. We spent our time thinking about it and finessing it and going through the characters. And that, of course, is what I really loved. I loved how, the first 2 episodes for me felt like a really nice escapism. We were on vacation, guys. So this is a nice escapism. And then it changes tones once you get to that 3rd episode when we're back at home and having to deal with life. It's no longer, oh, I'm taking a break, I'm free. This is like, no, we have kids, we have wives, we have husbands, we have jobs, we have ups, we have downs, we have controversy. So I really liked how they incorporated that into this series.
That's an excellent points across the board. I agree 100% with everything you said. Let me start by saying that, I thought it was fantastic how when I saw the trailer of this particular show, I initially thought this is just going to be about the movie and it's going to be about this wedding, Quentin, aka Terrence Howard's wedding. So like you said, when you see that it expands beyond that, I really appreciated that a lot, because you can tell when you look at every single actor and actress in this show, they absolutely love playing these characters, and they're very real and authentic because you see them putting their entire performance into the actual role. So that's why I said, and what you said about it felt like they just immediately walked right from Holiday and made this, it felt that way. And it also felt that way because, again, they explain the time that has passed, because they do have a time jump, that time jumps that happen throughout this entire thing. So you see exactly what happened at the end of Holiday, and then it goes a couple of years forward. And then again, like you said, it mentions COVID. We get to see how they dealt with COVID, how they deal with all the racial issues in the country, which we have also had to see over the last several years. So that's why I say I really appreciated that they got into a lot of different topics. And then, of course, like you said, when they have episodes that focus on specific characters, one character in particular, Merch, aka, this character has always been seen from the very beginning of these shows as somebody people try to take advantage of. He can be considered like a pushover, and you finally get a sense of when somebody doesn't feel okay, how they react to that situation. Because I know in this world, there's a lot of people that are going through all types of things. They don't really like to communicate what those issues are. So you need to see something like this to get an idea of somebody who can be in a similar situation and how they deal with that situation. But I think it's a lot of these issues about communicating, because that's the one thing I also will say about the show, is it really highlighted the importance of communication among friends, among everybody, in order to preserve relationships. That's something that we lack as a society today. We don't really talk to each other the way we need to talk to certain people, especially within our own little circles. So I'm glad they put that in there as well, because a lot of these topics, I'm pretty sure that these are things that people want to talk about, but maybe they may not be talking about it enough. So hopefully by them putting it out there, it is going to be more conversations that happen as a result. But yeah, I agree on everything you said. Fantastic cast. Even when they cast the kids at different ages, that was just an excellent, I could tell they really thought about a lot of stuff taken into account. So I thought it was fantastic as far as that was concerned. Now I will say, as you said, there may be some stuff that's a little over the top. What that stuff is, we'll talk about in the spoiler-free review, so you'll have to return to get those thoughts. But overall, I appreciated the characters. I appreciated what they did with the characters, and that we got a bit of a final telling of what happened to each of these characters as far as what's happening in their lives.
But I will say this, even the scene that was over the top, it made sense because we've been following these characters since 1999. So this wasn't like I met you yesterday and now I'm acting all crazy. They had all these relationships for decades. So nothing really felt right. Rushed or rash or anything.
Oh yeah.
Because they all know each other.
They know each other. And then you also get a sense of whenever there's a conflict, how that character would respond to a certain conflict. So there's certain things that happen with certain characters in this show, and they don't really necessarily like what happens, and they respond the way that they would respond because of how they responded in the previous two movies. But to see that they can also change, that was important to see as well, because as you get older, the world changes. You also may have to change how you think about certain things, certain situations. So, yeah, I did appreciate that for sure.
And for me, I don't know if you want to talk about any character that really stood out for you.
Specifically. You know what? I have to say this. This may shock some people. I think Terrence Howard did it. He was probably a standout character for me, because I know we talk, we've seen about stuff that he's done in his career, and then we talk about the fact that he passed up on the Marvel movies and all this other stuff. He wasn't able to. He wasn't able to stay on board that project. But how that character has transformed, I really appreciated his performance, because it stood out a lot more. It was more of an emotional side, because as he gets older, you start to think about certain things, and I actually did get a little teary-eyed at some of that stuff that he was dealing with in the show as it got towards the end. So I would say he would be my standout character. Of course, everybody else is fantastic. Morris Chestnut, how he is portrayed at the beginning of this particular show, how, once again, you mentioned he's still dealing with grief. The fact that he lost Mia, and, he's trying to, get a handle on life again. You get a sense of that. But he also kind of reckless how he is in the beginning of these episodes. But I'm glad to see that he, eventually comes to some resolution with all of that by the end, for sure.
And also, I really liked how he's able to be vulnerable around people. So often we see bottled up inside. So I really like how he's able to bring that vulnerability, as well as being completely wild and out of control. So I like the range of the character, but I just really liked is overall how they deal with mental health. If you just look at it overall, and and the trusting within that circle of it. And it's really interesting to see different relationships come together and fall apart. One of the things though that bothered me, without any kind of spoilers, is that Julian. Julian always bothered me. I know black people are not a monolith, and he can't always come across as like always eager to please, desperate to please.
Yep.
Very corny, kind of cornballish. And I know that, that's just the character itself and how he is. I just really wanted to shake him sometimes because he was so desperate. I'm the best man. Can I be the best man? What's going on? See, look what I did. And through that desperation, it's kind of like you just watch him keep failing. And so, yeah. But that also added layers.
That you're 100% right. That added layers because you got to see how he was always, the kind of person that wanted to please others, but then he also saw people were trying to take advantage of him, and then that was when he decided that he wanted to respond in a different way, which I thought was good. You need to show that. Nobody wants to be a pushover. They have to, stand up and do what they want to do for themselves as well. So I thought that was important that they did emphasize that. Yeah, and then there's a lot of, and then how they interact with each other, how those certain things can change as you get older, how you interact with certain people. It's just, I just think they did an excellent job. To stay on the point about Julian though, because you brought him up. The thing is that what I like is that with this whole thing with Harper wanting to make this movie, of course people have mixed thoughts on it, obviously, but when you see what happens in terms of the end result of the movie being made, that actually causes issues once again to pop up with certain people not being happy about the way that they were portrayed. So I thought that was great. And then again, it gets to the point because one thing that I will say, and we can say this for sure, because the one thing about Harper Stewart, which is consistent for Taye Diggs' character in the first two movies, he has these very ambitious goals. When he did that novel in the very beginning, he is not really too proud of it because he wants to step out and do something that he will make him look like he's a established writer, all this other stuff. But one thing we know is that he does have an ego. He has these things that he wants. So obviously, when he does certain things, and obviously, you can make the comment that certain decisions that are made when the film happens, he doesn't have full control over, but you got to know there's going to be a reaction if something is not portrayed the right way, or it makes a character look weak or any other type of thing. So it makes sense why other characters would not like how they were portrayed, because, and it also, again, aligns with his goals because he has this big goals, or I want to live in this rich part of the neighborhood, all this other stuff. I want to do this, that, or other. So, but yes, there are issues that he has to deal with as a result of that. And, but I thought it was very realistic because it makes sense I would say that there's going to be conflicts in life as you decide to go down these different paths. So I think they did a very good job of telling those stories.
And one of the things I kind of wondered was he more famous because of the sensationalism, or was it that he could actually write? Because they did that montage of like him signing the books with the women online, like yay. And no offense to the women, but it didn't seem like a book of intelligence.
No,
how we have like our beach reads.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Something that we do as an escapism, and so we kind of seen that as well with him being. I think that he was content for a while. Mm-hmm. Well, hey, at least I made it, but he wanted something more. Mm-hmm. And so I just wondered, kind of with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it is sensational writing, very very dramatic because people love drama, and that is why it was successful. I could understand why a studio exec would want to make a movie about this if it's going to be like any of those bad reality shows where there's a dating show where things are crazy and all these hookups and stuff. I totally understand why they would approach him on that. But yeah, that's like you said, he was content for a while, but then got to a certain point where he wanted to try to change his image. He didn't want to be known as the guy that only writes this type of material. So it made sense for him to want to change. But again, he goes through a lot in this.
Change.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. You're right. Absolutely. And he goes through a lot. He goes through a lot of things in these final chapters. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Was there anything else that you didn't like? Or
well, I will say that by the end of the show, we got pretty much we do get a chance to get an idea of what happened to every character on some level. And again, they do show some behind the scenes stuff, so you will get a chance to see that. Overall, there are some things that I did think some of the story stuff might have been a little bit out there. Some stuff might have been a little extreme. I don't want to get into that because it's going to be considered a little spoilery. But overall, I have to say that I was satisfied with the show because I thought that they got into a lot of topics. They expanded upon these characters more than I thought they ever would. Because again, we learned so much about them in the first two movies. So I was surprised how else can you expand upon what we already know? And then again, you get to see other characters become more vulnerable as they get older. They have kids, they have to deal with talking to their kids. It's a whole bunch of stuff that you wouldn't have really gotten a chance to. So basically, you're seeing these characters grow up as well. And they evolve over time, which is something that we all should be doing anyway. So I appreciate it that they really went in that direction. It makes me curious to know what other projects Malcolm D. Lee has planned in the future. This is definitely the end of The Best Man, obviously, but I'm very curious to know what else he has planned. But overall, I was very, very impressed with the show because again, it went further than what they showed in the trailer. And every time we do any of these recap discussions, I always complain when I watch a trailer before I see a movie. The trailer tells the whole movie. I did not feel that with this because there's a lot of stuff they did not show in any of those trailers. So people definitely will be glad, and I think they will appreciate that as well as stuff that they did talk about for sure.
Yeah. And then lastly, for me, it was really great to see a Black midlife crisis. We really get to see Black people going through their midlife crisis. So yay to that. I appreciate that.
I agree 100%.
Yes.
So with that said, I believe that concludes our spoiler-free thoughts on The Best Man, the final chapters. Definitely want to thank Peacock again for giving us the opportunity to review the show. And we are going to have a spoiler-free discussion, so please feel free to come back to the channel, and we'll definitely talk more about some of the other things that we didn't talk about here. But before we go, any final shout-outs that you would like to give? Dana.
Thank you very much for everyone just watching, and we'll have more content, a lot more content. We got a lot of Oscar stuff coming through. I've been very busy with that. I've almost seen it in almost every movie, so yay. So yeah, no, just look forward to that. More interviews and more discussions about movies and TV shows.
Absolutely. So yes, definitely come back, check out Dana's content. For those of you that have been wondering what happened to Power, well, I'm wondering the same thing because we haven't heard any other updates about Ghost or Force. And I don't really care if Force doesn't come back, but it is coming back. So, but don't worry, we are still going to be covering Power. We're going to be heading into 2023 soon. So we are going to still be covering Power. We're going to be covering Snowfall and a whole bunch of other things. So definitely stay tuned to the channel. We'll have a lot to talk about in the future. But in the meantime, definitely check out The Best Man final chapters and come back and check out our spoiler-free discussion if you want to hear more of our thoughts on some of the other stuff that happened in the show. But until then, thank you all for your continued support. And we'll talk to you later.